Okay, hello everybody. I'm going to record a quick, if I can, I'm going to upload this tomorrow. I wanted you to see my picture, the one I mentioned. That's it. When I get done, that's an actual picture of Grand Central Station, 1939, a photograph that was made bigger. See the sun coming, light coming through the windows? It's a pretty picture. Today, what I'm going to do is just a quick overview of some stuff that I was going to talk about. I just went into Corpus and was going to shop, and I'm going to barbecue in a little while. My daughter, Rebecca, has a birthday. It was April 1st. April Fool's Day is her birthday. But we're doing it today, so I'm going to barbecue. And I went into town, and on the way back, I figured I'll take a good video just talking about this stuff. We're going to discuss some world issues. But I stopped by a little waterfall that we have at a park here in this area on the highway coming back to the ranch. And then I got out, I had the phone, and I thought, oh, I don't have the little stand that I put the phone on. And then I said, oh, I should have got the stand. I was in Hobby Lobby and they had like four little stands, art easels that I use for the phone. And then I got back to the ranch, and then I realized I had the stand in the laptop, was in the trunk. So it's one of those days. But I'm going to talk about that. I was talking to somebody, the owner of the coffee shop, a few weeks ago. And we were having a good discussion. And I told him, somehow it came up. I said, oh, yeah. I said, I went to New York. Now, people are asking me. They don't see me or whatever. They say, or did you go to New York? Did you go to... I'm not giving details out anymore about you'll see the video of me taking one in front of St. Patrick's Cathedral in Times Square, and then you'll know I'm in New York. But I told him, I said, oh, yes, sometimes I just jump in the car and go. And I forgot. I said, oh, actually, I was here at the coffee shop last year, or whenever it was. I said, and a friend of mine from New Jersey put on Facebook, I'm ready to get out of New Jersey, and I had no plans to go to New Jersey at that time. I said, I'm planning on going in October or later in the year. And then I said, I'm going to move it up a month, the trip. And I was at the coffee shop. This was a while back. And that day I thought, I'm going to go tomorrow morning because I was already getting excited. And I rode out to the island where we lived or live. And I said, I'm going now. And I just went. Now, the owner of the coffee shop says, oh, I wished I could do that and all. I said, well, in life, I'm retired. And some people ask me, they didn't know I actually was retired. You get people that are volunteer firemen, they say they're retired and they're not retired. No, I get a check for life. I'm retired. That's how I support myself. But I mention that just to say, uh, if I don't want to drive to New Jersey anymore because it's a very long drive, but today I could have. I was in the mood to just do it. And if you have the energy, whether it's because you got, if you got it, use the energy. I got up at 2 o'clock today here. I'm going to show you a picture of my little room, how, I'm living in the past with all this hippie stuff. What do I want to discuss today? We're going to do Hebrews. Okay, we did Romans, we're going to do Hebrews. But what I want to talk about is some world events. I wrote a post, I don't know, a couple months ago, that I felt this year, the economy and the things that you see in the media, if you just read information, you'll see that the media is very deceptive. I read an article yesterday. Now, if you were going to look at the jobs numbers, we're going to do a little global stuff, a little economy. The jobs numbers came in for March, and it was 123,000 jobs. Terrible, very bad. 250,000 is about the amount of jobs that needs to be created each month in order to just break even. And 123,000 is very bad. But yet I read an article in the Corpus paper, but it was a national article, and it said, good news for jobs. And it's very interesting how they do that. Why do they do that? A big part of the economy rides upon how people feel about it. And if they can make people feel good about certain things, they'll do that. I think the Dow is at about 17,600. I think it's going to crash. Just for regular reasons. If you looked at the price for earnings ratio, I'll do a little technical. The amount of the value that you pay when you buy stocks for the amount of historically what it's really worth for what it's normally worth, that's very low. So you have a stock bubble in this country. You got a stock bubble in the Dow. And when the only country, I wrote that post about 2 months ago, I said, there's no way that the United States economy by itself, with Asia's economy slowing down and all the other events taking place, which I'll get to in a minute, there's no way that you're going to see a recovery. And the Federal Reserve just projected 0% growth for the year. 0% growth. Do you know we're not out of a recession? And we might hit something worse than what you saw in 2008. And that shouldn't surprise anybody. Syria, which used to be a big issue, Syria is a big issue. Greece leaving the Eurozone because of the financial problems is going to take place because they're not going to. The Syriza government, which is a leftist government, they're anti-austerity government that was elected in Greece. They basically are saying in the talks of getting the money, they got to make the payment to the IMF, the International Monetary Fund. I'll get a little technical. And now they're talking Germany is one of the most stable economies in the EU. And in some of the talks, they're accusing Germany, they're going back to Hitler and saying, well, you owe us reparations for World War II. That's going to fall apart, the EU. And Greece is going to go back to the drachma. They're going to go back to their own currency. But that's going to break away because when one does it, then the others are going to start voting in anti-austerity. There's a lot happening that's not good. The unemployment, look how deceptive this is. We have 93 million people in the United States of America that are not working. Okay? How many people? I haven't looked at the numbers in a while. We got about 350, 60 million people of the population of the U.S. Okay? So is 93 million next to 350 or 60 million, is that 5.5% unemployment? That's closer to 20%. Now, historically, you wouldn't say 20% because those that are not looking for work, that are living on welfare and so forth, they were never counted in the unemployment number. But if you use the actual traditional way we used to figure unemployment, it would be about 10%, which would be drastic. You'd have the Dow would be down, you'd have like a terrible recession. Why is it not 10% then? Why are they saying 5.5? They changed the calculation about a year ago, the Obama administration. And when they changed it, they made it look different. A lot is a game. Traditionally, as we used to calculate unemployment, you'd be at about 10% right now, a little over 10. Some say 15 to 16. You wouldn't be 5.5. And even when the economy, even when the adjustments were made, even with that, if you have 123,000 jobs that were created in March, it still should go down somewhat, even with the new calculation. But yet they said in the media, we only produced 123,000, but the unemployment rate remained the same. Because numbers are a game, okay? Numbers are a game, and a lot of people are playing the game. Just look realistically at where we're at and what's happening in the world. I read an article from the New York Times, Paul Krugman. He's certainly not a conservative, okay? He's a very liberal economist, but he's a smart man. And I read the New York Times. I'll pick it up sometimes when I'm on my way to the ranch. Krugman said the same thing. the value of the dollar has actually gone up. Why? Because the value of the European and the other economies, the global economy, is in trouble. So their currencies is down. Okay? So when it's cheaper for foreign or global partners, ours is more expensive, and so our exports are not going to be as wanted, coveted, because they're more expensive. It's just common sense. And even Krugman said that. So all of these are signs that we're in trouble economically. I, I really think that we're in a stock bubble, to be honest with you. And I think it's down right now, the last week, but I think it's gonna go bad. And when you just had the Federal Reserve's estimate growth for the year at 0%, that's terrible. You know, Janice Yellen is the head of the Federal Reserve. And even if you didn't have all of these problems that we have, millions or billions of dollars, but certainly millions, ride upon the interpretation of a certain way that the Federal Reserve Chairman speaks. In the financial world, they call it Fed speak. Okay? Alan Greenspan, very famous, well liked, well known Federal Reserve Chairman for many years. Every time he gave his speeches, you had to listen to every little word. And if someone says a little word a little off, oh, the Dow goes down a couple hundred points. How stable is any investment if it's dependent upon the slip of a word of one person? Say if I told you you had $1 million in the bank, just bank interest, which is zero, like 1% now. And say if I said, how stable, John, is my investment in that bank? Oh, it just depends. If the banker slips one word, you're going to lose half of it. That's what the market is, even regardless of all these other problems. And I've been a bear for a long time. I'm not pro market. I'm not a bull. Okay. But regardless of all the other problems taking place, that alone should make people think, do I want all my money riding on how a person speaks? Janice Yellen, they're talking about the people that are investing, the big money investors. They're really just looking at whether or not the Federal Reserve is going to raise interest rates. That's what they're looking at. And if they start raising the rates, well, those big investors are going to pull their money out. So the Fed's been talking about raising rates, which they should have done a long time ago, because it's a shame that monetary policy has kept interest rates so low, because it might benefit certain investors and certain big Wall Street types, but grandma and grandpa who had a lot of their money in general in CDs and old types of things, those people have been ruined because they can't live on their income, a lot of them. So there should be a question in this country whether the Federal Reserve, who is really not under congressional oversight, should have the power to decide monetary policy like that. But that's a whole other issue. But Janice Yellen said 2 speeches ago, she left the word whether they were going to be patient, just left that word in at one point, said the Federal Reserve is going to still be patient in raising rates. But then the last meeting, the last public statement, she left out that word patient. Well, the big investors started pulling their, you're talking millions and millions of dollars riding on that. And then she made another statement saying, just because we did not use the word patient does not mean we will not be patient. Now, semantics. You're going to have all your money riding on that, besides all the other problems we're having now. Globally, the Iran deal. Look, I'm not a Republican or a Democrat. I'm not a conservative or a liberal. But realistically, you have almost you have an all-out war now in Yemen, and it's what you would call a proxy war. Okay, Yemen was one of the countries that we touted as a big success in the terrorism and working, and it just like Libya, these countries are now gone. And in Yemen, total chaos in these countries. And in Yemen, Iran backs up a lot of terrorist groups, Hezbollah and various groups, and they have influence in Syria and different places. So for a while, there was a tribe, a militant group, Houthis in Yemen, that have been fighting, and Iran's been backing them up. Now, these are what you call sectarian wars. The Apostle Paul says in the book of Corinthians, John, what is sectarian? Corinthians says, Paul says, I heard that there are sects among you, or groups are splitting off, and you're following a certain leader. This was in Christianity. So sectarianism is divisions within a religious community or belief system. Now, I taught on Islam in the past, and I did not teach it in a derogatory way. I tried to teach it to show just the faith itself without being anti-Islam. But within Islam, dating back, 1,500 years ago, there was a divide on a certain, religious viewpoint. And so at that viewpoint, you have Sunni and Shia, without getting too technical. So within the Arab world, now Iran is not Arab, by the way, okay? It's Persian, so it can get a little confusing at times. But within that Muslim population and community, predominantly Arab world, you have a division. It's a religious division. And when we had our involvement in Iraq, we deposed Saddam Hussein. Most of you are familiar with that. But the man who did get in and got elected with our backing, he's part of these divisions here. And he really was favorable towards that particular division that he was a part of, okay? Whether it's a Sunni or Shia. Right now, the guy in charge is Shia, okay, in Iraq. Well, Iran, that's that division they support, okay? On the other side, on Saudi, you have the Sunni, okay? So there's divisions in these countries, in Syria, and in Iraq, and in Iran, and Egypt, based upon this. I've explained the division before, so I'm not going to teach that now. But so you have a religious war taking place. And what Iran has done for their side, they have gone out and tried to back up groups that are Shia-supported groups. ISIS is Sunni. Now, ISIS appealed to certain groups in Iraq. Their headquarters there is a portion of Iraq and Syria. And how did they appeal to some of the Sunnis in Iraq that joined ISIS? And ISIS actually took some cities. It's because that division was not getting support from the leader or president who we backed up, because he was playing to his side only. So ISIS had some support from the average people and said, yes, they were on the Sunni side. So we went in, we see ISIS as, the worst there is, and they're not the worst there is. The Shia terrorist groups are not much better at all. It's just they didn't do public beheadings that made us look bad. But all murder is bad, whether you behead 20 people or you kill hundreds, whether you kill kids with drones. It's a cowardice thing for us to have remote control planes to protect our guys. I'm not saying our guys are cowards, but that strategy is cowardly, because drones are remote control planes that we use. And at times they kill kids. You say, well, we've got to use remote because it protects our men. If we actually killed kids, which we have, not on purpose, though we did kill one on purpose in Yemen, that was another story. But that's not it shouldn't be a part of our thing. I'm against the drones. But in these divisions, I'm getting a little technical here today, Tikrit, a city in Iraq, was just supposedly taken, but we don't know, taken back by Iraq. And they did a big thing and said, oh, look, the Iraq military, they went in and they got rid of the ISIS at a Tikrit. And they did it with the backing of these militia out of Iran, okay, the Shia, who are not much better, okay? Because when they clear out some of these places, we've got proof of this now, They destroy the whole town after they get rid of the ISIS. They're just as bad. So we are backing up. We are the air power for the Shia groups who are trying to get rid of the ISIS groups. So we're the air power, get rid of the ISIS groups, and then when we get rid of ISIS, the Shia go in and abuse the Sunni people, the civilians. We should. There's no real answer, and I'm not blaming this all on Obama, but there are some countries, Syria, that we're backing one side, and the other country we're backing the other side in these groups. I don't know what's going on, but it's not good. And I'm just going to say, without being a totally, I listen to conservative radio and liberal radio, and I certainly don't agree with every conservative thing I hear. I wanted to talk about Ferguson a few weeks ago, and a lot of the conservative radio was just very, there's no such thing as racism within the cops. Look, there is racism, and I watched a show, a documentary not too long ago, and in Ferguson, when the report came out from Eric Holder, now I'm going back a few weeks, but it did show that they were running like a debtor's prison. And I'm going to give you one story. I'm not sure if this was Ferguson, but I saw a documentary. Do you know there's some of these areas where this takes place? Of course, it's high crime areas, government housing type things. Do you know some kids, black kids, the first, if I got it right, it was a story of a girl. Her first time in jail, was it for drugs, prostitution, ticket for jaywalking? That the poor mom, the tragedy of the single parent family in the poor black communities, as well as some of the white, couldn't pay the ticket. Well, when you get a ticket and you can't pay it, there's a warrant put out for you. This happens with some of my friends. First experience in jail, drugs, prostitution, mom couldn't pay the ticket. That's not law enforcement. That's criminal that you do stuff like that. And that was going on. And some of the white, and on Sean Hannity's show, he had a guy on, and he might have been a black man because he had him on saying, well, these kids need to be taught to obey the laws. If Sean Hannity had a minor daughter that came home one day and said, oh, Daddy, I went to jail because I crosswalked on the way to school. Now, I'm not saying all of it's that, but some of it was stuff like that. That's criminal. That's not law enforcement. That's going after those people. And some of the whites that there's Ferguson and the white city hall, and they had a thing, and some of them said, we don't see any problems. They honestly don't, because if you don't see it's in the system. I had a friend of mine in Flower Bluff, Corpus Christi. Now, I'm much more familiar with the harassment of homeless people than a black situation, where homeless guys that have a history, they do lie on some of these arrests with these guys. But there was a friend of mine, a Vietnam, a war vet with a leg injury, but he was also homeless. Sure enough, and he couldn't walk. He's got an injury, and he couldn't walk all the way to the pathway crosswalk under one of the overpasses in Corpus Christi, Flower Bluff. Got a ticket, had to pay the fine, $250, whatever it was, and they kept him an extra month on the street because that was his rent money. That's not law enforcement. I told a friend of mine, I told somebody yesterday, I used the F word a few times, because I said, a lot of the guys I work with are involved in a lot of stuff, and I've never condoned any of the stuff they're involved in. But one day, I saw one of them running across the street at night, right where I live. And I say, I'm not going to give the name. And he says, I'm going to probably go get shot right now. They're involved in gangs and stuff. I said, no. I said, don't. So I'm going. He was running to a trailer. And later that day, I think it was the same day, I saw 3 cops parked under the overpass. 3 cops, couple cars, giving out tickets for seatbelts. And a few blocks away, you got people shooting each other, killing each other. And I'm thinking, what is this? How is the manpower being used? There's a lot of questions about how you do policing. we had a high, uh, a girl by the name of Heather, I think Coglier was, she went to the police about 2 months ago and said her ex-boyfriend was going to kill her, threatened to kill her. And he went in, the cops called him in, was rightfully so. And they interviewed him. He said, oh no, they didn't have enough proof. He killed her. That night he killed her. Now, the PD did a big, I say PD because I was a firefighter for 25 years, we call him PD. They did a big thing on it and said, well, the big thing to say there was nothing we could have done. Let me explain something, those that are not aware. I worked with police for 25 years. It's not true there's nothing you could have done. There were times where in Kingsville, if we thought there was something going on and maybe you didn't have enough to arrest that man or whatever, you would just call PD and say, can you patrol this area? Can you just put a vehicle in front of the apartments? You can do that. Police departments all across this country do that. And they did, the local PD did a big thing. They had to interview, they had to go on the news and say, well, there was nothing we could have done. There's strategies you can use, and I'm familiar with that simply because I work with them. So I do have questions about things. But today, I just want to say the world situation, because of what's going on, and Saudi Arabia joined up with Jordan, Egypt, and they formed an Arab coalition, which is good. They should have done this a while ago. I'm not for us getting involved in any of these wars because that's the disagreement I have with the conservatives, the Hannitys, and so forth. Every time we're involved, there's chaos later. Libya and all these countries. But they just formed an alliance to push back the Iranian influence in Yemen, and they're now bombing. They went into Yemen. Now, the people of Yemen, the citizens of Yemen, it's a disaster and it's not good for them. But the reason this is happening is because our historic allies, Saudi Arabia, Israel, and the others, they saw the United States going out of its way to try to treat Iran as the new ally in the region. There's political reasons that President Obama went down this route, but they're historic allies, and I don't agree with these historic allies as well, because in Egypt we just released funding now again for we're going to give them arms and stuff. Egypt is not a free loving. They persecute. They got journalists in jail there. They got the elected president Morsi still in jail, and they overthrew him as a coup. And historically, we're not supposed to back up a country if you overthrow your leader as a coup. So there's a lot going on. Today, I wanted to tomorrow, I'm not going to post this today because I don't have internet. I'll post it tomorrow after the fact. But I'm going to go to Cole Park Easter service, and I would tell you guys, meet me there, my friends, but you're not going to see it until after. But Cole Park Easter service, I've done it. It's at 7:15 Sunday, sun up, Easter sunrise service. It's a beautiful thing. If you've never done it, try to do it. And let me say, I got friends that get mad at me because I don't answer my phone. Why do you not answer your phone? I'm busy, and I don't do it no more. Facebook, I love everyone on Facebook. I don't read comments or anything. You know, I'm finishing the catechism, and I don't want to be too critical of Facebook here. But if you're not working, you don't have a job, or you got things that you should be reading or studying, and you're spending hours on Facebook, the catechism talks about idle chatter. And I'm not saying don't just talk and comment, but so much is just reposting stupid stuff. And so that's primarily why you don't see me commenting at all. I'm just posting. I love everyone on Facebook that are my friends. Someone asked me the other day, are you going to New York? When you're going? I'm trying not to tell people what I'm doing. Just move forward and do just think you're supposed to do. For my New York friends, my North Bergen friends, you know, if you guys are mad because I don't answer for anybody. The other day, I had to have my car in the shop a month ago, and I tell people, I say, I don't answer my phone, I don't go through messages. I said, but if I ever have to, for a certain reason, like the mechanic, he's a good mechanic, there's a lot of cheap work, so I never know which number's calling me. One of the mechanics is calling me from the cell phones. So I had to go through the messages. Oh no, I had to answer the phone. It was one of my friends. I can't believe you answered it, John. I said, well, I never answer it, but my mechanic's calling and he doesn't have a regular number or a stable one. And then I had to go through the messages to see, and my friends get mad, cuss me out. You never, I'm calling you for a month now. I'm busy. I don't have, a secretary that answers things. So, but the idle chatter thing, let me just say this. Try to make your words effective. You say, John, well, I've heard you. I'm not saying I'm perfect, but try to make them effective. Today was just a little brief overview. I want to wish everybody a happy Easter. But I wanted to do that global thing because nothing is. I mentioned all that's happening a few months ago. I said there's a slowdown in Asian economies. Um, there's going to be a breakup of that euro. They've been putting it off, but Greece's going to break off. They're going to not make the payment to the IMF. They just basically said it. If we got a default to the bank or we're going to. There's many, many problems. And our country and our economy is not recovering. Okay? They changed this way it's figured out. You'd be at over 10% unemployment, which is bad. The guy who runs the Gallup poll, he realized this. He didn't know it either until about 2 months ago. And he went on. He said, I'm afraid I might be killed if I speak about this. He saw the numbers. He saw how we do it. Read for yourself. Understand. Learn. What would my advice be? Look, I don't recommend anybody to be in the market, but people say you never know if it's going to go up or down. Yes, but you could look at the trends, and we're going to be in probably a worse recession than what we had when we had the big problems. Okay, because we're in a global slowdown, and with all that's going on with these wars, it could become a meltdown, and so. We have hope in God. I don't want to depress everybody, but I'm looking at these numbers and I was going to write stuff on this, the other weeks, and I kept putting it off. We're going to begin Hebrews, okay, the book of Hebrews. So read through Hebrews. The next thing, this is just going to be a YouTube video. I'm not going to make a little thing. Look at my room. See me living in the past here. That's just hung up these lights. My maps. I got my maps. Look at that. Frankenstein and Wolfman things. This painting is from a homeless friend of mine. A homeless friend of mine painted that. Something, huh? And this is that picture. I don't know if you can see it good. This is Grand Central Station in November 11th, 1939. That's something, okay? God bless you guys. This is the ranch. Out the window. Bye.